What's up YouTube? Welcome back to Heavy Metal Cooking. Let's do this thing. Today's recipe, we're going to do an Irish stew. Nice sort of classic warming dish for the winter. You can see here I've got some neck of lamb. If you look through here, there's all this marbling. Basically this is a cheap cut from a part of the animal that does a lot of work. So all this white loveliness here is going to melt down while it's cooking and make it really soft. It's dirt cheap, it's about £5 or £6 a kilo, so you can't really go wrong. The first thing we're going to do here is just lightly score the skin, or not the skin rather, just the fat, and you all will become clear in just a moment. See, I'm doing it in this kind of cross-hatching pattern, like that. See along there? There we are. Okay, so you repeat that process for all of your lamb neck cutlets, and then you do this. I've got a little bowl full of salt here, and so where it's got the grooves, we all love a groove, I'm just going to rub salt into the fat, a bit like when you make pork crackling. The idea is it will get in the crevices, and then I put it in a cold pan, fat side down. Okay, so I've got my lamb fat side down in a cold pan, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the hob on. Now the idea is, this is a bit of an experiment here, I hope it works. I've never done this before, so it may well fuck up, but you never know. The idea is, a bit like when you see the chefs on TV, they cook their duck breast, they start off in a cold pan and let the fat drip out. That's because they don't want the fat to go all chewy and crap when you're trying to eat it. And also you can get plenty of flavour from the lamb fat. So I'm starting off with a cold pan and turn the heat on, and I'll spare you a few minutes of film footage while we skip to the actual rendering down process. Now this happened happened a bit quicker than I expected, and you can actually hear the sizzling as it goes down. In fact, I should probably have done this in slightly smaller batches that I can keep an eye on. This is a 100% professional production, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, you get the idea. So you just let the fat just like drip out. Okay, so you should now be able to notice two things. Firstly, I've arranged these lamb cutlets in an interesting kind of Jenga device to stop them from falling over. The second thing you should notice is that from the start with the cold pan, the fat is now rendering down. It's leaking out of the fat, out of the lamb chops, which is what we want. Right, now when your fat's ready, the fat should look like this. See it's brown and caramelised. You put it on a plate down here, ready for the next stage. Okay, so you can see I've got plenty of fat in the pan now, and I haven't had to use any oil. I hope you can hear me over the extractor fan. Next stage is I'm going to get these and put them in coat them in seasoned flour, which will give it a nice crust, and brown the other side of the meat. This also has the benefit of thickening the sauce, which is always good. Of course, the other advantage is You get all that extra lamb flavour in the dish. Don't want to crowd the pan, so I'm just going to do a few at a time. Right, so I've just turned these over. You can see that they're a lovely shade of brown, at least on the sides that I've cooked so far. I'm just going to sear them on each side, so that they're just nicely brown and caramelised. You'll also notice that these are on the bone, which is infinitely nicer. Okay, now that my lamb's all browned, we now turn our attention back to the pan. You can see there's loads of fat in there that's come out of the lamb. So now we add our vegetables. There's some carrots and onions at the moment. I want us to take on all of those lamb juices and make everything taste lamby and just let all the flavours generally mingle. Bit of seasoning. Just stir it around until they go, until the onions go translucent. Next we add the potatoes to the pan. Again, a bit of salt and pepper. Stirring it around to get everything nicely coated in that treacly lamb fat. So finally, the vegetables having soaked up most of what's in there, I'm just going to add some good lamb stock. I'm just going to try and dislodge any remaining sediment at the bottom of the pan. Bring it to the boil. Okay, so everything's browned nicely. The next stage is to just put it into a casserole dish, everything together. You can see I didn't have quite enough space in one of them, so I've got two. Little splash of Worcestershire sauce in each. And then some sprigs of thyme. Thyme's a very versatile herb. It goes particularly well with lamb stews, I find. The smell is amazing actually, it's really good. I do like the smell of lamb. Put them in there like that. Make it look a bit neater. And then when you can actually open the packet, because your fingers are covered in lamb grease, you throw in a few bay leaves. Put like 3 in the big one and 2 in the little one. And then finally, you finish off, or at least you finish off this stage, by pouring in that lamb stock you made. You need just enough to almost cover. As you can see, I'm going to need more. Okay, so these have been in the oven for about an hour and a half. And so for the last half hour to 20 minutes, I'm just going to put some cabbage in. It's just some plain old green cabbage. And this, I didn't put it in at the beginning because obviously it would way overcook in this time. It can now steam in the lamb juices for the remaining cooking time. Redistribute this. Then we'll pop it back in the oven for about 20 minutes. Okay, so it's finished cooking. So the next step is to just let the meat rest and thicken the gravy. So start by pouring this in here. While I'm at it, I'm going to get rid of this thyme at the top. Served its purpose. So the gravy is draining out. I'm going to pour the rest of it in here to rest for a minute. And same with the other one. In fact, a ladle would be helpful right now. If I could find one. Ooh. Everything's just softened and cooked down. So the next thing we need to do is just skim this fat off the surface. Ooh, a couple of bits of cabbage. Stick on the heat underneath the gravy so it can reduce and thicken. In fact, an easier way is to just get some tissue or kitchen paper . Just, well, hopefully you just don't drop too much in. I'm just going to boil that down until it's a nice thickness. Okay, so I've reduced my gravy to a consistency I like. You can see here we've got the lovely lamb, cooked vegetables. Just pour a bit of that lovely gravy over. There you are, guys. Perhaps a little bit more. Irish stew, everybody. Warm your cockles. So there you are, guys. A nice warming bit of Irish stew for the winter months there. Next week we'll be interviewing the Director General of the BBC to find out why Nigel Slater still has a job. Until then, stay tuned and stay heavy.